What's up, YouTube? It's your girl at Tony, and I'm back at it again with another video. This time, kind of wanted to talk about top 10 questions that millennials have that I feel like goes unanswered. So I brought in a friend, an entrepreneur and financial advisor. Yes, financial advisor, David Williams Jr. Tell us a little bit about what you do and where you work for and all that kind of stuff.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
You're welcome.
My name's David Williams. I'm located here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm an entrepreneur and investment advisor, which is also considered a financial advisor. I work with families locally, work with clients nationwide, and we just talk about different strategies on how to save money and how to build equity long term. I'm an advocate for generational wealth, and one of my main purposes is kind of help bridge the wealth gap, and that's why we're here.
So what's a wealth gap? What is that?
So wealth gap is primarily the gap between, like, we'll say demographics, so it'd be like a Caucasian, African American. So there's a gap of wealth where they've had money for so long and they use certain strategies so that way they can continue to make money for their family.
Like what Jay-Z be talking about.
Basically, yeah. If you listen to 444, we're going to give you a lot of gems that probably came from the story of OJ in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That way, and then also the big thing is like the wealth gap between men and women that do the same job primarily, but they get paid less on a national average.
Yeah.
So that's something I want to help bridge.
What made you want to do that?
Growing up, I grew up in kind of like a single parent household. My mom, she's real strong. She have a doctorate now. Shout out to Mom Dukes.
Hey.
And it was just one of those things where I seen so much growing up, and I seen how hard she worked, and then I found out the fact that she's not really getting paid at the same rate as her male counterpart, but doing much more work. It's tough being a black woman in America.
Period. It's definitely touched me. Yeah. So I'm glad that you're here. And I wanted to kind of just have an open conversation about money in general, because I feel like as young black people specifically, and just as young millennials, we are often afraid to ask questions because you don't want to come off looking stupid. So I know a lot of times when I look up money stuff or stock market or whatever, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So luckily I can come to him and he'll give me some insight on what I need to do with budgeting, with finance, with anything. Now I'm not necessarily gonna do it, but I'm gonna try. So we both put on Instagram basically asking, what questions are millennials afraid to ask? And we got tons of responses. We got 3. But I also looked up some questions from what other people may, want to know. First question, what's the best way to budget? Or create a budget, I guess.
So I think the first component of budgeting is just understanding your cash flow. So how you make money, how your checks end up being, what your bills look like, things like that. Now with all the technology that's available, a lot of banks actually have within your checking and savings situation a way that you can see how you're spending money. That's a good way to start. Yeah.
Does Fifth Third have that? That's where I'm with.
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but if not, there's some apps like Mint, and then there's also like,
how do you spell that?
MINT, where you can do, it's free. It'll take everything in your account, you log in, and it'll show you what categories you're spending in. Now, some of the categories are going to be unrecognized.
Oh, is that the one that you gave me before? Right. All my money went to Target.
Yeah.
So.
And then Target was not a good decision.
Right. It wasn't a good decision.
But no, it's a place where all the money's going to be at. You can see how you're spending it, and we live in such a card swiping society that you need to know where your money's going. Right. There are going to be some times where you take out cash. You could do what they call like a little
envelope
journal. A journal, right? You write down like why I spent that cash, or why you spent it. You can put it in there. I think the easiest way to start a budget is with your bank statement, because that's where most of your money goes from. And then after you understand that, you see what you have left. Unfortunately, the average American household can't get like an unexpected $400 bill without going into the negative. So what the goal is to figure out what your cash flow is, and then always pay yourself first. That's the first rule.
That's game. Free game.
It's free.
It's free game. Okay, so with the budget, what do you feel like needs to go in the emergency fund category?
So like emergency fund is usually about 3 to 6 months of savings. So if you're single, we usually say 6 months, and if you have a partner, husband, spouse, you guys living together.
Isn't it single 3 months?
No. Single is 6 months because you have to save longer.
Oh, okay.
Right? If you have a partner, they're paying half the bills, so you need to save half the money.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Right.
How do you suggest getting yourself out of debt so that you don't carry it into the next generation?
I think the biggest thing with debt is just understanding where it comes from. So there's like credit card debt, which is like some of the worst debt, payday loan debt, like very, very high interest rates.
Yeah.
And then there's like, you have a mortgage, your debt on that, student loan debt, which has
Would you
lower interest
consider
rates.
that debt though? Or would you just consider like having a mortgage or whatever? Like, would you consider that debt? Or would you just consider that just like life expenses?
Well, it depends, because you can have equity in a home, but you
What's
may be in a
equity?
position. Equity is where you actually, the home's worth more money than you owe on it. So that means when you get done, you're going to have some type of cash that comes back.
Okay.
So sometimes you buy a house and the property value goes down, which is why you have to do a little bit of research before you buy it, because if you buy in the wrong neighborhood and the value goes down and your mortgage is more than what your house is being appraised for, then that's debt.
It's kind of bad though, because isn't that like kind of for our culture, then they always say like buy back the neighborhood. But then when you start buying homes and properties in bad neighborhood, then you don't have good equity, right?
Property, nigga, I'm trying to invest. Talking monopoly, I'm trying to encourage a nigga to run up a check.
So that's very, very good question, right? We live in a society now where back in like 1960s, 70s, 80s, there was this thing all the way up until like the 90s. There was this thing called the Black Codes, where like they had subsection of different cities, like they sectioned them off for black families and white families. And what ended up happening was most black people lived in the inner city, right? So white people were like, oh, we're gonna move far away, we're gonna go to the suburbs.
Yeah.
That's how we have all these communities outside of the city limits.
Right.
Well, now gentrification is happening, everybody's moving back into the city, and what they're doing is they're buying all the property in our neighborhoods for a very low price. They're pushing the price up, raising the rent to a point where we can't afford them, and they're pushing us away from the middle of the city now.
I feel like there's no black neighborhoods that are like super up, you know what I mean, like financially.
Right,
like you have black businesses inside of gentrified neighborhoods that go up, but not just black gentrification. I mean, that's not real, but like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
I know what you're saying.
Like,
So
well,
it's
how do we fix that?
It's the research and understanding what you have. See, what will happen is, and you'll have people that are quote unquote developers. They'll come into your area and they'll send out letters usually, and they'll say, hey, we buy ugly houses. Have you guys ever seen those signs? Things like that. So they buy neighborhoods and places that they know that the property value is very low, and they can get you out for a low price. Because most times what we do is we don't understand the overall value and the overall scheme of things. Like in Cincinnati, the west side of Cincinnati, prior to FC Cincinnati actually getting that stadium approved, right?
Yeah.
That area that we know wasn't like the greatest area,
Right.
But the thing is, in order to build a stadium, they had to tear down property. So when you own property in an area that has to be, they need to do some type of change, or they're building on, they got to get you out of that space. A lot of times what we need to do is ownership. We're habitual renters.
One question I actually had had myself, like, what is the definition of, like, what is a stock? Like, what is stock market? What is all of that? Simply.
Okay. So
break it down, like, for us.
So a stock is basically ownership in a company.
Okay.
Whenever a company goes quote unquote public, so like the companies we love, like Apple,
Target.
Hennessy, Target, like all those companies, they have stock that they open up. So it allows you to own a piece of the company.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you purchase a stock and you become an owner of a piece of that company.
So how many pieces does a company have?
Depends on what state they're in.
Okay.
So most companies do what they call an IPO. I know it's called an initial public offering.
I'll put the definition in.
Right? Okay. So when they have that, the state may approve them for, like, let's say 1 million shares.
Okay.
Right? But the shares are valued based on what the share price is.
Okay.
So if it's like 50 shares and $50 a share, and it's 1 million shares, and it's $50 million.
Gotcha.
You can buy into those shares. And by buying into those shares, you own a piece of the company. You got voting rights, you have different pieces. Now, if you own,
even if you own like one stock, they'll still send you stuff for voting rights?
Every year. So, and these are the things that, sit down with a financial advisor, they could kind of help you through that process.
Like you.
Right after that, right? You gotta plug yourself. But,
like who? What's the name of your company again?
Come on now, DWS Financial.
Period. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, but owning a piece of company, it creates equity. Like the key to wealth in this country and every other country is ownership. You have to own something. So you got to own a house, own a car. You have to have something of value to either be able to buy or sell.
Right.
And stock is something of value. Being in Cincinnati, there's a great company that gives a lot of stock out, Procter & Gamble, and those shares are worth so much.
So wait, so is it like the bigger the company, the more expensive the shares are?
No. No. There are large companies, usually blue chip stocks, that would be like basically the largest companies in America. You see them on the stock market, like the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500. Those are indexes. Yeah, right. Anyway, those are places where you would have some of the larger companies. A company is valued based on the share price.
Okay.
The share price goes up because of a few factors, primarily being supply and demand. Okay. Whenever you see like a news clip, right, it'll come out, and I'll give you an example, like a company Tesla, right? I purchased some shares of Tesla, and in the
big
summer,
boss move.
Anyway, in the summer, there was a point in which Tesla, they had bad publicity. Their CEO, they were questioning their direction, right? So Tesla was down to about $150 a share, right? So this was in roughly June. Yeah. Now Tesla's worth today about $800, $900 a share.
So if you bought it at $150, now your share is worth $850.
Yeah,
so
roughly.
So you really not only made, but so you technically made $700?
Well, it depends on how many shares you buy. Okay. So if you bought it at $150, let's say you bought 10 shares, then you pay what, $1,500, right? Yeah. Right. You go up now, that same $1,500 is worth $8,500, and it only took 6 months to do that.
Okay, so that's good because this kind of segues into the next question. Now I know a lot of times, like I'll come to him, like I'll spend money unnecessarily. Going wherever I go, I'm gonna spend it unnecessarily because it's like I want it, I got it, I'm gonna spend it, and that's not a good thing. Especially when you got somebody breathing down your ass every 5 seconds when you buy something.
Okay.
If I have this money that I'm already spending unnecessarily, like for example, you give me you just gave me the Tesla examples or whatever, it was like $150 a share, right? Right. So say I take the $150 and I put it into the share, now I gotta wait 10 years for it to get big to $850 or whatever. Right. Like, you know what I mean? So it seems like it's not much, unless I'm buying multiple shares of a company, it doesn't seem like it's any benefit to me. Because it's really like I'm not making that much money. I'm making, 10 years later, I'm making $700.
Well, it only took 6 months for that to happen.
Oh,
so shit. Yeah, that's the value of growth. But you shouldn't put money in the stock market that you don't have.
Okay. So that was the next question. How do I invest money that I don't have? And if I change my mind, can I get my money back?
You could get your money back. So the same way that you buy shares, you can sell them. You could primarily sell them on the same day. So when you sell out of shares, there's a strategy that a lot of people use. They buy shares, and when the price goes up, they sell it because you should buy low and sell high.
So how does one sell a stock?
The same way that they bought it. They usually use an advisor, or you can go through a third party, which there's day trading. So there's like an E-Trade account that you can open. Usually your bank has an option of opening up what they call a brokerage account. Brokerage account is just buying and selling stock.
Okay. So if I wanted to, like, say if I wanted to buy stock in Apple, clearly I like Apple. So can I just, if I didn't want to have to go to a person, can I just like Google buy stock in Apple and I can just buy it over the internet?
Yeah, you can buy it over the internet, but you usually have to open up a brokerage account, which is like a bank account for investing.
The next question was, will there be enough Social Security left for us when we become retirement age? I don't know what kind of question that is, but we're going to answer it.
That's a good question.
Is it? I didn't know that there was a set amount.
So, well, the thing is, Social Security is in a deficit. So we're spending more money in Social Security than we're taking in, right? They had this problem back in like the late 70s, early 80s, where they just basically moved the Social Security age. So right now, technically, you could take out your Social Security at 62, right? I believe they're probably gonna move it to about 65. It's gonna free them up, probably trillions of dollars just because of a 3-year gap. They might even move it to 70 because they say that people are living longer.
Right, so they're working longer.
So they should be working longer because it's hard to, walk away from your job and then need to live for another 60 years.
Fair.
I retired at 60 and then you live to 115.
When are you trying to retire?
I'm trying to retire real soon.
Oh, like 50? Like 40?
I want to not have to do anything, probably about 40.
How do I make sure that I have enough money for retirement?
So retirement is more so like a destination. I always talk to people about that. So there's different vehicles that you can use on your way to the destination.
Okay.
Now, retirement just means that you no longer have to, really work. That could look like 45, it could look like 55.
However you set up your
like
life,
60.
basically.
Yeah, but it's about planning. So I recommend sitting down with a financial advisor. Usually advisors.
Do you know any?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right here. There you go. But no, sit down with a financial advisor and just get talking. Just talk to them. They got a lot of strategies, a few plans that they can run you through, and it usually doesn't cost you anything to sit down. I think that's the misconception. People feel like, yeah, I mean, we don't want to waste time, but at the same time, it's good to have a conversation. It's one thing to give somebody a map, but it's another thing for them to execute. And that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
I tell people this all the time. I sit down with, doctors, lawyers, very, very, very smart people. But you have a job. Like a surgeon don't have time to really be looking at the stock market. A lawyer,
Gotcha.
He got capital murder case downtown. Hey, let me check my stock. Smart people hire advisors. They hire advisors to do things that they don't have time to do. I do this all day, every day, and I have a passion for it. I love it, so it's easy.
So what about, I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer. So do I not need your service?
Well, I mean, you work a job, 9 to 3, 9 to 5.
Oh, shade.
I'm just saying, basically you're working, allow somebody else to do the work for you.
Okay.
Especially if you can hire an expert. I think that the misconception is, I have to go sit down and I have to have this enormous amount of money to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You don't. I think that you'll learn things through the conversation that you're sitting down with an advisor on how maybe I should set up my plan. That doesn't mean you have to do something. Don't ever feel pressured into, I have to do something today.
Yeah.
Go in, see where you at. It's the same thing with anything. You plan for it. So it's this is what my retirement look like. The only thing that an advisor gonna do, they're gonna tell you where you need to be, if you're behind, or just give you a few tips that you can change.
What is a 401k or a 401k? As I've heard people call it.
Okay. So 401k is the most cookie cutter retirement plan that most companies use.
Okay. Is that where they match? If you put in this amount, then we'll put in this amount towards your.
There are some 401ks that work like that. Not every 401k matches, but if they do match, you want to contribute to the match because nobody can beat the match. Okay, so it's they're giving you $1 for every dollar you put in, right? Versus, if a stock, you might make, 10, 15, 20%. That's getting 20 cents for every dollar you put in. See? So you want to make sure that you're maximizing that if you're not. But 401k is just an employer plan. Most people have. It's a forced retirement plan. So
you have to put an age on it. By this time I want to be retired, so start sending me my check. So is it just kind of
So
how do you know?
Well, the government says that you can't touch it till 59 and a half without a penalty. So we just say 60 because that half year, they literally go down to the exact day.
So we talked about a 401k. We talked about retirement, which is kind of the same thing. 401k is a version of retirement.
It's a retirement account.
Right, okay. So then what is a Roth IRA?
So a Roth IRA is a post-tax retirement account. So after you get paid,
you just spoke Spanish. What is that?
So post-tax. So when you get your check, after they take out your taxes, there's money left. You put that into a Roth IRA. Okay. The reason why people use a Roth IRA is because you don't have to pay taxes on the money on withdrawal because you paid taxes up front.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
401k, you pay taxes before they take out taxes from your check. So it gives you a slight advantage because the taxes are deferred until you retire.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. Okay. And then the last question before we wrap it up is this is kind of random, but do I need life insurance?
I think life insurance is something that everybody needs in some way. How much life insurance is probably the better question.
Yeah.
At this point, it's the leading cause of death in America and in the world is life. So you're born to die at some point.
That was deep.
So you need some form of life insurance. I think that you can maximize life insurance and pass on generational wealth because life insurance is not taxed upon death.
So whatever you put in is what you're getting straight back out.
So you put in a premium, and then you could, like, if you bought $1 million policy, right? Depending on the type, you probably can pay, between $100 to $200 a month, right? You get $1 million policy. Now you're in a position where if you die today, tomorrow, anytime, your family's gonna get $1 million, no tax.
So how long? Okay, so let's say hypothetically, I get $1 million
Policy.
Okay. I get $1 million policy in January. Okay, I pay $100 February, $100 in March,
Right.
and then I die.
Yes.
They get the $1 million. Even though I only paid $200.
Right. It's the same thing with auto insurance. You pay one premium, get in an accident, tomorrow they pay for your whole car. They don't tell you, hey, you haven't paid enough into it for you to get this.
Okay.
It's a contract.
Like, how do you know how much you want to take out? Like, how much should your life insurance policy be?
It depends on your lifestyle. So when you sit down with an advisor, like, they talk to you about what you make, so your income.
Okay.
Usually debt. So if you have, like, let's say student loans, you want to make sure you pay off those. And maybe if you want to, like, if you have a spouse, you buy a house, right? Well, it takes usually two people to get the mortgage. You guys either credit and job history together, right? So if you pass away, they can't leave the house in the other person's name.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure there's enough cash to take care of their primary residence as well.
Right.
So those are just different factors, and there's other things like lifestyle things. If a man died and wanted to leave his wife, 10 years worth of salary, if he makes $50,000 a year, then we need to put another $500,000 into the policy.
Right.
So these are things that when you sit down with a life insurance or an investment advisor or a financial advisor in any space, they'll talk to you about what your needs are. Because it's not like one cookie cutter plan where it's like, oh, I have life insurance now, right?
Right.
You should always make sure that they meet your needs, because there's no point in paying for something that isn't going to work for you.
Right. So can you tell us what do you got going on now? I heard something about like a major market Mondays. Tell us what's going on. What you got working?
So for me, behind the wealth gap conversation, I decided that I wanted to really focus on millennials, because in the space that I'm in, I get a lot of questions on an everyday basis on my Instagram, or just through having conversation with friends, and I'm like, well, there's not really a major resource to say, hey, you're at this point in your life, like, this is what you should do. There's a bunch of people that are like super uber 45, 50, 60, 70 years old and tell you what they do with their money, but like, we live in a totally different time. They haven't dealt with a lot of things we deal with. So I started a YouTube for my company, which is DWS Financial, and I also have an Instagram that I'm going to be using for my business, which is dws.financial. And every Monday we're going to put some type of content on, which would be what we call Pound Major Market Mondays, where we talk about things that are actively happening in the market, just small tips about trading and what you should be looking for. And then I always do like a sleeper pick, so a hot stock that I think is going to do good. Okay.
So when will this YouTube be dropping?
So we just finished wrapping up like the intro video. I want to make sure that I kind of give people a little bit background about myself. It should be done later on this week. So I want to start roughly in probably like the next week or so.
Okay, so latest beginning of March.
Beginning of March, yeah. Okay. And then I also want to get a little bit more detailed content. So I'm working on a webinar once a month where you just log in and you go from there. It's basically to give feedback, talk about some of the things that may be more specific to your situation. Okay.
All right, so y'all heard it. So we got the YouTube dropping in March, DWS Financial, Instagram, DWS.financial, and that'll be up and running around the same time?
Around the same time, yeah.
Okay, around the same time. So make sure that you like, comment, subscribe this video, and like, comment, and subscribe David's video, and make sure that you are watching and looking out for Money Market Mondays. He's gonna give y'all major market Mondays.
Major market Mondays.
So you can get these gems, so you can get your generational wealth gap closed.
What she said.
Something like that. Get money. Period. Get money. That's what you need to do. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Bye.
Man, they had all the lights. They had the lights.
Oh, so you're trying to say I'm not good?
Damn, it was a studio.
When I came in and set up my ring light, he had a lot to say.
He was like, "Oh, is that it?"
He said, "Oh, that's your little ring light." Kim,
be quiet.
Don't be wrestling that candy. I swear to God, that candy wrestle.
So when we start to I'm
gonna introduce you.
Okay.
So
and do I need to
what's your title?
Can you do a mock one? Hey.
clearly you haven't watched any of my YouTube videos.
Well,
Are we just gonna try it out? Because the thing is, I can edit for it to piece and make sense.
yeah, I know. You could keep. We just keep recording.
Yeah.
It's not my first rodeo. All right.
Niggas do
Let's
what?
go.
I can't interview.
Listen, wait till my video come out, y'all.